8 until noon. At the same time, there's a farmer's market in Smyrna at the depot. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford Issues with Brian Barrett on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
Rutherford Issues is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric. MTE's charitable foundation, Sharing Change, is funded by members who round up their electric bills to the nearest dollar each month as a donation and support hundreds of nonprofits. Find out more at sharingchange.org. Our time today will be spent talking about the Heart of Tennessee chapter of the American Red Cross. Their executive director, John Mitchell, joins us, and John keeps a very busy schedule and joining us by phone today. John, how are you?
Doing great. Brian, the lead-in commentary, I can't help notice that's one of our supporters, so Middle Tennessee Electric, and Sharing Change is a great organization and support for, as it said, many, agencies, and they support us. So couldn't help but tie that in.
Well, I'm glad that you did. It's amazing we have such great community partners. Middle Tennessee Electric is really high on that list because of all of the things that they do in the community and don't often maybe get recognition for that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Very true.
Well, what's going on with the Red Cross here, John?
Well, as you know, the Red Cross is focused on supporting the growing need, for emergency shelters in Texas, through Hurricane Beryl. Last night, Thursday night, it grew about 13%, the shelter population in response. Last night, the total was 725 people in 18 emergency shelters. So, that's our big focus. As these things develop, we have some volunteers that will pre-deploy and, not be in harm's way, but be close to the scene, but then, be ready to help with whatever needs come up. Of course, that's the really, tough thing about this one, even though it was, as you see on the news, only a Category 1, that has a tendency to kind of undersell the needs that people are going through. But just a tremendous amount of need, and getting people in shelters that need refuge from the heat with no electricity. When you have over 1 million people without electricity, that just complicates everyday life, whether it be, food in the refrigerator, medicines, including pets. It's a real need, and Tennessee is known as a volunteer state. So as always, they're representing. I know of at least 2 from our chapter here in the Heart of Tennessee chapter, located in Murfreesboro, that are down there or over there. I think approximately 35 from the full state of Tennessee. So, we have over 500 Red Crossers that are supporting the efforts in, the Texas area right now.
Yeah, and when you think about this, it is hurricane season. It was the earliest to develop into a Cat 5. It hit around Cozumel, Mexico, and then made that turn to the Texas coast with Galveston getting a hit there, and then on up to Houston inland. And, there are 500,000 without power in Houston itself. And this storm, it's been, a week, I guess. And now there have even been reports of 150 people losing their homes in Vermont because of the flooding rains from this. So, it has a wide-ranging tropical systems can do a wide range of damage, from tornadoes, the wind, all the water coming in. So, from Texas to Vermont, this storm has definitely made a name for itself. And unfortunately, John, it's only the first one of the year.
Exactly. I know in one of the initial reports, the National Weather Association had indicated, up to 4 to 7 named storms like this, and as you said, it was so early breaking records as it was going through, the Caribbean. It's we're just mindful that we know we have to be diligent, and even though we may have a lot of miles in between where these are impacting at times, the Red Cross's strength is the fact that it's a national organization that can deploy in a heartbeat and pull resources from many different places, and we've got a proud history of supporting that. So I always like to take this time to encourage people. If you're sitting at the house and you say, how can I help? Of course, that can always be, with a financial, help. And that could be, visit redcross.org, 1-800-RED-CROSS, or you can text Beryl, BERYL, to 90999 to donate. The other thing is come on board and help us out as a volunteer. If that scares you, think, man, I'm not ready to go to Houston tomorrow, we wouldn't do that to you. But what we will do is find a place for you to volunteer. We are continually addressing emergencies and disasters that happen locally. So when we have volunteers that do deploy, we still need people to support us here, whether it's a home fire or maybe just assisting somebody to come to our chapter and give blood. So consider donating your time or your money.
And John Mitchell joining us, Heart of Tennessee, American Red Cross Chapter Executive Director. And we've had a couple of news stories on the air, John, in the last few days of home fires, one that totally destroyed a home on Tomahawk here in Murfreesboro. So, I'm not sure that a lot of people know that the Red Cross is always there for help and assistance when we have things like that happen locally. And I'm sure the people who have had to go through that are certainly aware of it.
Very much so. And, I can't say enough and brag about, 90% of what we do is through volunteers, and the volunteers we have are the real heroes. Some of them are getting up in the middle of the night and taking a call and, verifying there's a fire, and then calling a couple of other Red Crossers to go out and actually respond to the scene. We let the firefighters do what they do. We're there in support for the people to provide a little bit of hope. And then once it's determined that, the fire department says that's an inhabitable space, then they can put some money in their bank account that night or a debit card to take those next few steps. So it's a real key component to the fact that we're serving locally and abroad. And we just have some great volunteers, and I can't brag on them enough for doing what they do.
And honestly, I'm not sure where this misconception comes into play, and you being with the Red Cross, maybe you know, but a lot of people think that the Red Cross is an arm of the government, is a governmental agency, and that's not the case. And you work on donations, and most of the work is done by volunteers with the organization.
It is, Brian. And when the Red Cross, started, it's a government instrumentality. So we are not part of the government. We do not receive federal funding. If you really want to get right down to it, and if you go through some of the orientation materials about how the Red Cross started, we're an unfunded mandate. So we are mandated by Congress to provide these services, but that didn't come with funding. So when we ask people to support us, that means that, they're the ones, it's the, American citizens that are stepping up, and the corporations that are so, gracious to step in when people need help. So, yeah, we're an unfunded mandate. We take that mandate serious. We are there to respond and to support and work with the local emergency staff that's, working with the government. We work hand in hand with them, But, yeah, it's a good point to make is we are not part of the federal government. We work closely with government agencies to provide the services that we do.
And even the military and things of that nature, if you've had someone serve overseas and maybe there's been a death in the family, and trying to make notification and things of that nature, that's an arm of what the Red Cross does. You kind of have the tentacles spread throughout with a lot of things that go on, and some folks, if they're very fortunate, will never have to have the services of the Red Cross, but to know that it's there and continues to go through volunteer efforts and donations is a really big deal. So I want to make sure we hit home on, you can donate locally, you can volunteer locally, and also, John, this is a critical time. I would think summertime for blood donations is down just because everybody's off their normal schedule with kids at home and things like that.
Yeah, and you can imagine that when we talk about when a hurricane hits and all of a sudden everything's changed, if the heat, and just think of how many blood drives that were scheduled in the Houston area have been canceled.
Yeah. So
we've got to pick that up elsewhere. And so, yeah, the need for giving blood, and most people know this, but right there at our office, we have a blood donation center. You can go online and download the blood donation app. That's just fabulous. You can, once you get that started, it will actually help you schedule your appointment. It will remind you of the appointment. Then after you've given blood, it will give you data as to how the blood you gave is helping specifically in what location, and it kind of tracks that progress. It's a pretty neat thing. So I would encourage anybody that's wanting to give blood is to go to your Google or, whichever app and download the Red Cross blood donation app, and we'll make it easy as we can.
John Mitchell with us with the Heart of Tennessee chapter of the American Red Cross. And when we say Heart of Tennessee chapter, John, I know that the chapter is based in Murfreesboro, but when we talk about, fires locally, volunteering locally, maybe storms locally that cause problems, your service area is quite large.
Yeah, 10 counties. So if you were looking at a map, you could just kind of see, Rutherford County and DeKalb County above that. And then if you just start going south, that's going to cover Marshall, Moore, Lincoln. It goes all the way down to, the Alabama-Tennessee line. And so, a good core of our volunteers are close to the Murfreesboro area, but we also have some key volunteers that are in all these counties that are serving locally, of course, with helping out with blood drives, responding to home fires. When the volunteers are in between responding to home fires, they don't just stay idle. They have a lot of preparedness type activity they can do. We go in and install smoke alarms for free. We'll go and do preparedness talks, hands-only CPR, be Red Cross ready. So just keep a really wide, keep your mind wide open when it comes to volunteering for the Red Cross. Don't just think that's getting on, a plane and going to Houston and helping out with hurricane relief. That's only one opportunity, but the opportunities are vast to support.
John, appreciate your time this morning, and it's always good to catch up, and we'll talk again next month.
Okay, Brian, thank you so much. Thanks
Absolutely.
for what you guys do and getting the good word out.
Appreciate that. That is John Mitchell joining us, Executive Director of the Heart of Tennessee chapter of the American Red Cross. The podcast will be up shortly if you missed out on part of it, so be sure to check that out. That's WGNSradio.com. Just look under podcast and Rutherford Issues.
Greetings, friends. This is Lenny Farmer with the Jennings & Ayers Funeral Home in Murfreesboro.